Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Brian Beecher. I'm the director of the Library and Learning Commons here at Grand Rapids Community College. Welcome to our facility, and you're in for quite a treat today. We have a wonderful presentation that focuses on fake news from the journalist's perspective. Our guest panel will discuss the changing media landscape and the effects of fake news on the journalism industry. This event is co-sponsored by the Collegiate, our Grand Rapids Community College student newspaper. Jennifer Ackerman Haywood is the collegiate advisor and journalism professor here at GRCC, and she'll be facilitating the panel for us today. So without further ado, please help me welcome Jennifer Ackerman Haywood as our facilitator. Thank you.
Hi, thank you all for coming today. I'm really excited to get to have all these great journalists standing here, or sitting here. You guys are sitting, I'm standing. Okay. It's kind of a reunion tour.
That was fake news.
That was fake news. Did you guys catch that? Did you? Yeah, okay. So we just want to make sure you're on your toes and you can recognize fake news. That observation is a big tool for journalism, so your eyes will not betray you here. So today we're going to get started. I'm going to have kind of go down the line and let each journalist introduce themselves and share a little bit about what they do. And then after that, we're going to move into a discussion of fake news and how it's impacting journalism today. When I started, in this business about 20 years ago, not to date myself, we didn't have all this wasn't the same kind of issue it is now. Things were a little bit different. So hopefully you'll walk away from this enlightened about how these journalists are navigating today's ever-changing media landscape, and you'll know more about how you can maybe get into a career like this if this is something you aspire to yourself. So I'd like to start off with Catherine Behrendt from Channel 13, if you can explain a little bit about what you do. And
Yep. I'd be glad to. Thank you all for being here. I'm Catherine. I work at WZZM, which is one of two ABC affiliates in the Western Michigan region, and we're right up on Alpine and 3 Mile. And I have been there for over 30 years. And prior to that, I worked up in Cadillac, Traverse City at a CBS affiliate, TV 9 and 10. So I've been at this a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes in our industry, and I'm anxious to hear your questions and your observations on the way things have changed, and perhaps share a few stories. I am currently, I've done everything in the building almost, but currently I'm hosting a lifestyle show called My West Michigan, and there's a segment in the show called The Exchange, and it used to be you could never, it still is, you could never buy your way into a newscast on television, but these are called sales-friendly shows, and there are sections which are sponsored by local sponsors, which is absolutely new territory in our industry, but very much happening all over the country, and so that's interesting, new ground, and I'm breaking it. So that's that.
Very good. Hi there, everybody. I'm Clayton Cummins, a GRCC alum. I was taking classes here a couple years ago. Right now, I am an anchor and a reporter at WILX. We're the NBC affiliate in Lansing, Michigan. I do a variety of things. Reporters are responsible for generating the stories. We're responsible for posting on social media. Again, we are MMJs, multimedia journalists, where reporters are shooting their own stuff, editing their own stuff, and presenting it at the end of the day, whether that's a live shot, whether that is something that is presented in the studio. That's what I do during the week. On the weekends, I anchor our 6 and 11 o'clock shows at night on WILX. We are in kind of a special partnership with the Fox affiliate where the local Fox affiliate there, Fox 47, will pay Channel 10 to produce their newscast. So with the flip of a switch, the lights change colors, the graphics behind us change, new logo, new color scheme, and I anchor the 10 o'clock from 10 to 11. I do social media during the weekends, Facebook Live, so on and so forth. It's really a variety of responsibilities on the weekends at WILX.
My name is Justin. I'm a reporter at the Grand Rapids Business Journal. I cover multiple beats, including healthcare, economic development, nonprofits, higher education, a few others. I've been there for about 7 months. I just moved back to the area from California for this job. And I'm a former GRCC student, former editor of the Collegiate about 6 years ago. I was the first editor that you worked with when you first came.
Right, and he told me before we met, there was word that I did find an editor, and they said, okay, your first job is to find an editor-in-chief. And Justin, remember he called me, he got my phone number, like good reporter. He's like, okay, who's in charge? I got to call this lady. He called me and he said, don't worry, you don't have to do any interviews. I'll be the editor-in-chief. So we did interviews anyway, and he got the job. But yeah, so it's been 6 years. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that long.
No,
though.
And we haven't aged a bit.
Right.
This must be what Mark Zuckerberg feels like today.
Oh, I hope you're more comfortable than Mark is feeling right now.
For sure.
Yeah.
Last time we saw each other was an indoor triathlon, right?
I think so.
She's
yeah.
a rock star swimmer.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between. You have kept up with it. We'll get
Yes.
to your national circuit competition, or international competition. Well, that'll be another podcast or another
That's
panel.
another
Yeah.
panel discussion.
Yeah.
Right now it's all about fake news. I'm Shelly Irwin with WGVU Public Media, which is the local PBS and NPR affiliate here in Grand Rapids, licensed by Grand Valley State University. I'm honored to host a radio show from 9 to 11. So at 10:59, I pushed the button and I was out the door. It's filled with anywhere between 6 to 10 informational, educational, and informative interviews, basically about our community. I would like to think it's positive. It's letting you know where to go, what to do, and certainly needs in our community. I always like to ask near the end of some of our interviews, how can the community help you? Also interview a lot of authors, entertainers that are in the house, in our area as well. Also lucky to have some platforms in our public television station as well, with hosting of Family Health Matters and Kalamazoo Lively Arts, Community Connection. So a little of this and a little of that, and that's why we run so hard. Running away from something or something. No. So
It's great therapy.
lucky to be here, and I've done several GRCC interviews as well. So.
All right, Jim.
Okay. First of all, thanks for inviting me. If any of you are students of Jen, she's a real deal. I worked with her at the press. She is a fine reporter, a fine editor, and a fine journalist, so you're lucky you've got her. Again, I'm Jim Harger. In our business, the first thing we learn is you don't bury the lead, the most important part of the story today. So I've got to tell you, I was just I just accepted a buyout, so after 42 years of doing this, I'm going to be doing something else at the end of the month. A lot of that has to do with the collapse of the newspaper business model, and I can talk about that if you're interested. I've covered, I've been in this business 42 years, almost 38 with the Grand Rapids Press and MLive for the last 6. If hopefully all of you are familiar with MLive as the premier news source online in West Michigan, and I'm being serious here. We also publish the Grand Rapids Press. Some of you may have seen this. If not, ask your parents or grandparents about it. They like it. We've got Sudoku in there if you want to have some fun. But we've also got some important news stories. Just a little background on myself. I grew up in Holland. I decided to go into journalism after I abandoned my political science major in the wake of a political scandal called Watergate. I came to realize that political science is one of the biggest oxymorons in academia. And I can go on about that too if you'd like. But I've really enjoyed journalism because it's a search for the truth, and we can get into that too. But anyway, I've been in this business. For 42 years. I started out at the Holland Sentinel and moved up to the Mount Pleasant paper. I worked in Lansing for a year, and then I came to the Grand Rapids Press in 1980. And here I've covered federal courts, I've covered business, I've covered City Hall, I've covered politics. So I kind of know the waterfront in terms of journalism. So.
Well, thank you. And Jim, I just want to commend you for 42 years. That's a long time.
Amazing.
And that was my grand plan, too. So congratulations on a very long and accomplished career. That's awesome. So now we're going to get on to the point, our topic today, which is fake news. And I want to start out by maybe one of you on the panel, maybe if you want to jump in and kind of just to make sure we're all on the same page here in this room, define what is fake news? What do you consider fake news? So who would like to jump in on that?
Well, I asked my wife this morning.
So you'd be ready.
My sounding board, what's fake news? And she goes, Donald Trump. And I go, but he invented that term, as a defense for journalists, calling him out for his lies. He started calling them fake news, and it took place. And she goes, no, he's fake news. So it all depends on who you are and what your narrative is in terms of what fake news is. But fake news is in my opinion, information with which you disagree and you don't have an argument to articulate your disagreement, and so therefore you slap the easy label of fake news on it, just like our president.
Okay, that's one of two definitions that I'm looking for. So, Shelly, it looks like you're ready with the next one.
Here we go. Did a little homework. It was the 2017 Word of the Year. Academically, fake news is news, stories, or hoaxes created to deliberately misinform or deceive the audience. I'm a Facebook addict. Of course, I put that question out. Here's an answer. Fake news is a neologism often used to refer to fabricated news. This type of news, in quotations, found in traditional news, social media, or fake news websites has no basis in fact, but is presented as being factually accurate.
Okay, so we have two definitions. One is the pretty literal translation of, it's news that is not accurate. And people who generate this kind of stuff are folks who might have a job. There are jobs now where you can generate fake news to sway elections, sway, just debunk, people or organizations. And obviously this is something as journalists that we're fighting against, because as a couple of you mentioned, we're and Jim in particular, we're in the business of reporting truth, of getting to the truth and getting to the real information so we can keep our readers informed. That second definition is we're seeing something now happen in our it's part of the vernacular now. People are, not just the president, it's kind of caught on. There are other people out there who, if they don't agree with a news story or don't like the news story, it's being categorized as fake. What kind of, and so I'm interested in having the panelists talk a little bit about what kind of complication that's created for journalists to have an instance where you can, and actually, let's back up for 1 second. We have Bart Deiters here. So I want to give Bart, we'll catch you up here. We've just done introductions, and this is, in the news business, it's really difficult. In fact, I'm asking a lot of people to leave in the middle of a workday and come to a college on the second floor of a library without any real, we don't have any neon signs. So thank you for getting here, Bart. If you could maybe introduce yourself and talk.
I had a better excuse for being late. I just thought it was at 12:30.
Oh, it's okay. But you know what? That's honest, and we appreciate the truth, and that's what we're searching for today.
It's in the spirit of real news. Real news is I'm stupid.
Okay, well.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's 30 minutes early for something. Yeah, so technically you're 30 minutes early. All right, excellent. All right, Bart. So Bart and I worked together at the Grand Rapids Press. We were night cops reporters, I believe, the same time.
Yep.
And then I moved to education. And now Bart has slick TV hair.
Yeah, that's
I need
right.
some help with my hair because in the academic world, they don't worry about our hair. So I have to say, all my friends that are going into broadcast, I'm like, man, maybe I should do that. Let's see how I look. So anyway, Bart, welcome. If you can just talk a little bit about what you're doing now, I mean, a little bit of what else you did in your career.
Sure. I started out at Lansing Community College. I was the managing editor of the newspaper there, and the Collegiate was our nemesis at the time. We were always competing with them for community college newspaper of the year, or whatever that award was. And so I went on from there and worked for weekly papers. Worked at the Advance. I did some string for State Journal and Detroit Free Press, and finally bullied my way into a job at the Grand Rapids Press, and I was there for 16 years. And 2 years ago, I went to Wood TV, and that's where I've been since. So I'm covering right now. I'm basically just doing general assignment, just whatever comes up. I do a lot of court stuff because that's kind of my specialty. It was at the Grand Rapids Press, but I do a lot of different things. So.
And there's one story in particular that you just covered that I like to circle back to. You probably know which one I'm going to be asking you about later. Involves bubble wrap.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. So we'll circle back to that in a bit. Okay. So we are going to now move into just having the panelists talk a little bit about the complication that fake news and people labeling fake news, things that might be true in fact. What kind of complications has this caused you? Have you had any complications from viewers, readers, listeners, or just any of your thoughts on how this impacts the work that you do?
Well, my personal favorite thing to do is get the man on the streets, the MOSs, and we ask folks things about what they thought about the game last night, what they think about car insurance going up. I was doing a story about car insurance rising. I was at, I think it was a rest stop near Williamston on I-96, and it's just me. Camera, one shoulder, mic in the other hand, asking folks.
Dangerous.
I find myself, once I'm explaining what it is I'm doing, hey, did you know your car insurance is going up? And, people look at my mic flag. First of all, they see Fox, and they think that, well, you're from Fox News. We're a Fox affiliate. But there are some people that will just ignore me. They'll look and just walk past. There will be other folks that will, well, you're just the fake news, and keep walking. And I guess my point is I find myself having to explain and build confidence, kind of almost in the fact that what I'm saying is true with some people, in order for them to talk to me about that subject. So I guess that's one thing I notice, is that there's a little bit more of a hesitancy with folks, in just day-to-day folks that I try to talk to get reaction from.
Any other thoughts on that? How has it impacted your job?
I'm not a breaking news platform, but if something comes up and that it looks like it's hot and it needs to get out, the days are gone where you're just pushing the button and sending it out. You have to take a breath and check the source.
And what do you do to check the source? So when you see something, and as you said, you like Facebook, so something comes across Facebook, what steps do you take once you see something that you're like, whoa, that looks like I want to report that?
Most likely check another source or check another colleague.
What sources do you like to go to verify things?
By. I always go, our own NPR headquarters is oftentimes the biggest source for our headquarters.
And you have a team of people working there.
I'm going to stay with NPR for my source.
Yeah, of course. It's it's a credible source.
But but obviously there are other sources that I'm sure we'll get into.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Other thoughts? Jim.
Interestingly, some of my friends on the right do not view NPR as a credible source.
That's true. I need to back up.
They watch Fox. and they bought into the Fox narrative, and they listen to NPR, and they just go, where do these guys come from? Then I tell them to tune into Rachel Maddow, and they go, they're just like they can't believe it at all. My point is, these are competing narratives. We've got a culture war in which we've got these competing narratives about where we're headed as a society, and in some respects, I have to respect all of those narratives, including the ones that dismiss NPR. But at some point, we need to figure out what the truth is. And I run into that a lot, in which you will talk to someone who has a completely different narrative that doesn't jibe with the truth, but they are convinced that they are right. And I don't know how to escape that, other than to say we are in the middle of a culture war right now.
And that's something we do have to acknowledge, that our readers and audiences in general it's a polarized group. It's not, people have their own beliefs that they hold true. And it takes journalists have to do a lot of work to get to the truth and then present that, and people might not believe it because of the outlet you work for, which is really
too gentle to call it competing narratives. I mean, this is done by design. The design is to put things into a state of confusion, to actually dissemble what truth is, to say there is no truth, there's just what you believe, and there's my truth and your truth and their truth. And it's a constant struggle to say, no, there are verifiable facts, and there are real things that exist in the world.
But the White House says there are alternative facts.
Exactly. So it's a constant struggle. It's exhausting.
Well, it's frustrating, because if you go out and if you're going to a court document, because you report on courts a lot. I did that at the press as well. The court document has the facts. You can cover the court proceedings and say this actually happened, and it is frustrating to have people think, because of whatever organization you're writing for, that there might not be truth to or merit to what you're doing.
Actually, let me interrupt, because when a case comes to court, it's because there's a competing narrative. This happened, no, this did not happen. So that's
Right.
where it gets resolved. That's where the judges determine
Right.
what is fact and what's not fact. And that's why the Supreme Court is such a battleground right now, because you've got justices with competing narratives who are saying, this is the way it should be, and the other people saying that's the way it should be. So when you go to a court document, you can say what the court document would be, but if you ignore one of the arguments versus the other, then
Absolutely. I think that perhaps that was a bad example. I'm talking about if you go to an event as a reporter and you factually write about what happened, who said what happened at the event, even if you go straight down the line. We've all done it. We've all had to go, you go to an event, you report it, you go straight down the line, and you don't make up any, you don't have an elephant walking through the room, any fictionalized parts. People still can take issue with your work. And I think that's what I kind of want to get into, is when you go out there and you're doing your job, now, I mean, I can sense it from Bart, from what you've said, it's frustrating to have to deal with that.
90% of the time when people say there's bias, the truth is that their bias hasn't been reflected in your reporting.
Yeah.
That's what when people say there's bias, it's that you haven't shown my bias, and that's the issue.
I think a good day is when I'm accused by both ends of the spectrum that I am biased in the opposite direction. Job well done. If everybody thinks I'm telling something that's different from what they believe.
Well, a communist and a tool of the police state. So.
Yeah, I think fake news has. In some ways, made journalists more careful and cautious about getting it right. We cannot afford to get it wrong in this climate. So it, in some ways, could produce better journalism, but at the same time, it's caused safety concerns for many journalists. Just out covering a ridiculous story in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where there have been, threats and scary moments and a lot of accusations, and that's just ridiculous. And so it has its positive impact potentially as well as problems.
And it's even
From print journalism to broadcast journalism, I can tell you that when we were in print journalism, we just were ourselves, and we were, nobody noticed us. But now I'm out there with this van with all the stuff on it, and the hostility is genuine. It's
Yell things at you when you're out on the side of the road doing it. Yep.
they throw things at you.
now than it was a couple years ago. I guess a year and a half ago. But yeah, it's I was shocked.
Throwing rocks at me.
Oh, yeah, this is news to me. I'm a print journalist, and so hearing that people, yeah, that's surprising. No one has ever, when I'm out doing a story, no one's ever said, "You're fake news." Like, no one's ever screamed that in my face. I've never had any of that kind of hostility. And also our readers and the people that I work with, it's a smaller than like MLive. It's the business community mostly. But still, it's kind of like what you said, it's almost like walking on eggshells, because journalists, it's always been important for us to get things right, but journalists are people, and journalists do make mistakes. But in this climate especially, it's really important to double, triple check to make sure that's not happening. And also kind of going back to journalism 101 and making sure that you're getting all sides as well as you can.
Never has the role of a journalist been more important than in this current climate.
Yeah.
It is essential that we're rooting out the truth. And so I feel like, that's, while it's a scary time and our industry is changing and the attitudes toward what we do are changing, it also feels good to be so necessary in the world right now too.
This happened today on Facebook. Friend says, "No, Yonkers is closing." Other friend says, "That's a joke, right?" The friend responds, "Not according to TV8." So, again, she's believing this because of your source. Did she check another source, is where I'm going with that.
Yeah. Well, I think reasonable people know what reliable sources are. I think, and they recognize the job we're doing, and that's the appeal of fake news, is that it appeals to people's pre-existing biases. It's and I think we've all fallen for probably a fake meme or something like that. And some of them are just so well crafted. It's, you just wonder, why would somebody put so much time into this? Or you see one where it's like, well, this guy's actually said worse things than this. Why create this fake one that says something even less inflammatory? But it's and it's done on purpose. It's done to appeal to that base instinct on either side, on the left and the right. So it's if you read something and you're like, I can't believe they said that. They probably didn't. Yeah.
This exists on several different planes. I cover agriculture as one of my beats. My granola-eating progressive wife refers to the large successful farms I write about as CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. She thinks they're immoral. I grew up on a farm. I see highly productive, efficient ways of delivering affordable food. That's why you can get a hamburger at McDonald's for $1. Competing narratives. Is a successful farm a CAFO? And the problem is the fake news label is gotten taken over in the political sphere, where we are trying to decide whether or not truth should play a role in politics. And the Trump administration You know, Donald Trump is demonstrably a liar. I mean, truth is just something that he finds an impediment to what he wants to do. I mean, you can prove he lies on a number of different things. He slapped this label of fake news on the people who are calling him out on that, and now we've got this competing narrative. But it's, you know, it's been around for a long time. I mean, William Randolph Hearst, if you know who he is, started a war with fake news, yellow journalism. He became one of the wealthiest men in America on yellow journalism, which was fake news. That was 100 years ago. So we go through these cycles in which we need to cleanse ourselves of these false narratives, and we're in the middle of it right now. Hopefully 20 years from now, we'll look back and chuckle and go, oh man, we really didn't know what the truth was back then, but who knows?
Yeah, and the difference now is that you used to need to have a printing press and a lot of type to put your yellow journalism fake stuff out there, and now you can just hop on Facebook. So
I think Jim and I are old enough to remember when, you know, the idea that you could just unfetter yourself from the establishment press and editors and stuff like that was kind of a dream. And now that it's a reality, it's turned out to be really terrible. And, you know, those gatekeepers, the people who could decide, you know, whether something had credibility before it got released to the public, has played a vital role, and they're just, I mean, that's just gone forever. We're never going to get that back.
Maybe we can talk about that, because a guy who used his freedom to post whatever he wanted on the internet actually determined how you were going to spend your day recently with an assignment you just did. So maybe can you explain the story that you covered the other day?
Yeah, probably the most benign use of fake news ever, but the 100th Street Bridge is, I don't know how many people have heard about that, but it's this bridge down South Kent County that suddenly this year people have just started hitting with their trucks. It's been around forever, and I don't remember 7 people so far have hit it. It's apparently too low, or people are just not, or maybe it's because people aren't enforcing the high truck rules. I don't know what it is, but anyway, this guy created there's a website called for the 100th Street Bridge, where it talks about, you know, please don't hit me anymore and stuff like that. And so a couple weeks ago, a guy decided to create an event where he was inviting everyone to come with bubble wrap, and they were going to bubble wrap the bridge in order to protect it from trucks. And 4,000 people said they were going to attend. Was it 4,000? And so Michigan State Police, and I would have loved to have been in the meeting where they discussed this, decided that they had to issue a release to the media saying, don't bubble wrap the bridge or we'll arrest you. And so you know, that's good-natured kind of fake news. It didn't have the impact, but still it was enough to get the Michigan State Police attention.
And is that the point when Channel 8 decided to cover it, is when the state police got involved?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes these events turn, I mean, something that's totally benign, as you say, turns into something that is a public safety issue. At least the state police felt so. So yeah. So do any people in attendance have any questions just about fake news at this point? Any questions that you'd like to ask, or any comments you'd like to make?
Hi, my name is Rachel Yadlowski. I'm the editor at the Collegiate right now. A few months ago, I was at a Trump rally, supporters, and the second I went there, a woman came up to me and a photographer and asked why we put out false things. I guess my question to you is, how do you guys respond to it? Because I kind of took a step back and didn't know how to respond to it. So how do you guys respond to that, and how do you explain to them that what you're trying to do?
She actually came up to you and talked to you. She didn't shout it from far away.
She came up the second I walked in there. She came up and was like, "Hey, you know,
right. Yeah, that's a difficult situation to be in, because you suddenly you're just on the defensive. I mean, all you can really say is you know, I'm committed to telling the truth, and you know, that's why I'm here. So you know, and you kind of engage them. Just, tell me what you think. Tell me your truth, and you'll find in about 2 minutes, all of a sudden they're your pal, telling it. People just want to be heard. People just want to tell their story, for the most part. And most of the time, if you just kind of stand there and just kind of let them have their second with you, then they're good. I mean, I've been in places where it's extremely hostile to reporters, and most recently I was at a gun event, this thing where they were teaching people how to build AR-15s, and at first I could tell it was just like solid stone, and you just gotta say, I'm listening to you, I'm hearing you, I'm hearing what you have to say, and that's just kind of your job as a journalist, is just kind of hear people,
And I think it's important to note, too, that people lose their jobs, when your job is on the line, when you are caught fabricating things, when you're caught flat out lying. And I think there are a lot of journalists on the national front that are examples of that. Brian Williams, I believe a ABC, I think it was Brian Ross, I believe, from ABC, was suspended. When you are actually found responsible for, telling lies, there are huge repercussions. People's careers are on the line, that they've spent years building up. So
that's kind of a good way to tell whether it's a legitimate news source or not. If somebody does something wrong, if they get in trouble for it, if they don't get a promotion or their own show for it, that's kind of how you can tell whether it's real news or fake news.
Didn't Dan Rather have some issues with that as well?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, you turned out to be right.
My name is Steve Norris. I'm an old retired food beverage man from Colorado. Years gone by, we were in the middle of Columbine and things of that sort. We participated in a thing right after Columbine, CNN did. We were kind of interested in how it was edited. As the years rolled on, I have a son that won 2 Emmys for editing the news in Kansas City for many years. But, my thought is that all of you have to take a look at the fact that credibility is everything, truly. I believe, when we think about long-term statements about the fact that, let's say, for instance, Donald Trump does not tell the truth. Was the alternative of Bill and Hillary any better? Can we show that they are habitual liars? Of course we can. That's very, very true. So my thoughts are this. Years ago, when I was in my late 40s, I read a book called People of the Lie by a psychiatrist, psychotherapist that worked for the United States government. I read it again about a week ago, 25 years later. It means a lot more to me today, because today when I read that book about People of the Lie, I am much wiser than when I was in my late 40s. I'm not smarter, just wiser. Thank you. You might comment on that.
Any comments on that?
I think he's talking to you. I think that's something that happens a lot, is kind of whataboutism. And you can say, well, this person did this too, and as an excuse for somebody doing something else. But you have to look at context, and while somebody may have done something, somebody doing something now at a volume that's never been seen before certainly has to be taken into consideration.
And that's one of the reasons why, as journalists, we have to have that same approach no matter who we're covering. You're trying to get to the truth no matter who you're covering. You're just as aggressive with every single person to get to that truth. So that's a good point.
So with the recent Sinclair story, I guess, how do you handle if someone approaches you and asks you, who's your ownership? Does it matter? I guess because of the story, I think about the channels when I'm flipping through them and think, who does own this station?
I mean, certainly in the case of Sinclair, it did matter, didn't it? And I'm sure everybody's familiar with that mandated content that their affiliates around the country were ordered to read on the air. And I think ownership does matter. I've never worked at a station that told us what angle to take on a story, whether that said we're going to be the liberal station or the conservative one. Never, ever. But I am proud of the ownership of the station for which I work. It is Tegna, and they have done a lot to be on the front edge of a rapidly changing landscape, and to do it with integrity and transparency. And those are kind of silly buzzwords in our industry unless you really mean them and do something with them. And so for me, I think ownership does matter.
I think it's important too, whatever news source it is you're watching, reading, listening to, research who owns that company. And see what they've been doing lately with content, with their news. I think it's important on any platform to learn more who exactly owns CNN, who exactly owns Fox News, who is running the show at your local station, your local newspaper. That's important, I think, in taking into consideration what you see online.
Is to look at how they conduct their business. I mean, Donald Trump has been attacking Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. Why? Because Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, which is holding his feet to the fire. Now, why is Jeff Bezos own the Washington Post? Why the world's largest retailer also owns the Washington Post, which is holding Donald Trump's feet to the fire. You have to ask yourself, well, how are they conducting themselves as the Washington Post? There's always been big money in media. The company I work for, I wish I owned it. The company I worked for is owned by the Newhouse family, which is a large media empire. They include the New Yorker, they include the New Orleans paper, the Portland Oregonian. They own a number of magazines. I mean, they're very large, and it's privately held. So you have to look. My point is, look at how MLive conducts itself. Look at how our media sisters conduct themselves. Yes, it's a big money business. Yes, there's a lot of money in media. But you can't just say, well, these are billionaires who own these companies, and I'm not a billionaire, or I don't trust billionaires, and therefore I don't trust what is being said or written. I guess, that's my point. Look at how these companies conduct themselves, not just who owns them.
I think if you find a problem, or if there's a concern, reach out. Just don't, if it's something that bothers you, reach out to station management.
A couple things. You also, if you don't have time to do your own research on researching the ownership of every publication that you read, you also can look at publications like the Columbia Journalism Review, and the Poynter Institute also keeps an eye on the industry, and they're often the biggest critics when they think the media is not doing what it should do. They hold all of us accountable, so that's something to keep in mind as well. The other thing is, when you're consuming news, often when there's the business side is covered. You see this a lot in national media when there's big mergers happening. You'll often hear an anchor say, it just kind of as a side note, our company, I don't know how they phrase it, but they'll say that their company is owned by, and then they say what their connection is to the business they're covering. Mm-hmm. So if you're not seeing that transparency in the media that you're consuming, they're not kind of making it apparent to the viewers and the readers, that's when you kind of raise your eyebrows a little bit more, because that transparency is usually a sign that the organization's trying to be on the up and up.
It's a disclosure.
Yeah, a disclosure, exactly.
And this is maybe just more of a comment, but as a consumer, I'm concerned about the percentage of ownership. It seems like it's, going in either direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what type of ownership?
Concerned in the percentage of ownership by one
concentration
group or another.
of
Yes, so
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, to follow
So are we.
what she is saying is, I believe that 6 people or 6 corporations own 90% of the media, if that is correct. So that's what you're dealing with. My concern is not the fake news that's released, but the lack of news that's released. And anybody that's worked for MLive can tell you, you don't have a school board coverage anymore. You don't have local city commission meetings unless it's something that's going to be huge. So whoever wants to shove something down somebody's throat is going to do it because there is no media coverage on that. A local family here whose name we can't use because they seem to own half the city can do whatever they feel like doing because the media isn't there to report what's happening.
Well, that is a true fact. The fact that we just don't have coverage of those events, the planning. I mean, when I started, we had people at planning commissions, we had people at school boards, I'm talking about TV and the newspaper. That's a real missing thing in journalism right now, and nobody
Shrinking.
seems to do it.
I was at the last planning commission meeting, but anyway.
And yes, Catherine, shrinking resources, yeah.
My point, your point's well taken. We have less people because the business model that was the underpinnings of newspaper has collapsed in the digital age. MLive is working very hard to develop new sources of revenue to pay the journalists. None of us work for free. And we're in a period in which the newspaper business model is collapsing. MLive is working hard to recover it to gain digital revenue, but it's a struggle, which is why I was offered a buyout, and am taking one. But we still do go through the city commission agendas, the planning commission agendas. We are looking for those important news stories in the school boards. Our education writers still look at all the agendas to see what's coming along, but we can't do it at the depth we once did.
But you're right, it's a halcyon age for small corruption, small town corruption, because the eyes aren't there anymore like they used to be.
And that's probably the greatest tragedy that because we're trying to battle, allegations of fake news, and then we have less people to do it. Jim, when you started at the Grand Rapids Press, how many people would you say you worked with in the newsroom?
Probably 80 to 100.
Okay.
The building's not even there anymore.
Well, no.
Yeah, and so and how many people are on staff? How many reporters do you have now?
I don't know.
Okay.
Probably 20, but I don't know. I don't, yeah.
And so part of it, though, the responsibility, too, of all of us as consumers of media. I'm a journalist, but I also consume media, just like everybody else. This is a tough time for journalists, and part of it is because our readers and viewers want the news for free. And before, we would have newspapers, in particular, would have the print advertising. This is the bread and butter. That's how they paid for all the news and all the reporters to go out there and do their job. And as we've gone into the internet, a lot of people are not paying to read MLive. When my column was canceled, I had a lot of people coming up to me, and I still do. I have people say, "Why did you stop writing that?" And then we get to talking and stuff, and I explain that there's some downsizing that happened, and people are like, "Oh, and I said, "Well, were you a subscriber? Are you a subscriber?" And then, "Well, no, I just read it for free online." And I said, "Well, that's part of what contributes to these things." So that's something to think about too, is supporting the media you like, So there's another question. So,
And that pay model may not be forever gone.
No,
I mean, it may be
no.
part of the new go-forward plan, because every aspect of the media, every platform is having to rejigger.
It's a complete renovation
Yep.
of the industry.
Hello, Nathan Taylor from the Collegiate Reporter. As we were talking about these social media platforms, what are you guys doing since we have websites like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, multiple media platforms where they are taking revenue, shares, followers, views, you name it. And what are you guys doing to compete with that?
we're trying to embrace that. So we utilize all of those platforms that you mentioned for a broader reach and to engage a different audience. The people who utilize those platforms, people don't watch TV news anymore, just as the newspaper industry is changing, same with television news. So rather than see them as competitors, we have had to find ways to embrace them and incorporate them into the way that we cover the news each day. And some of that has led to flimsy, silliness, and some of it has allowed us to tell stories in ways that we never have been able to do that before. So the good and the bad, with this changing landscape.
But I know in Clayton,
Technically, we kind of try to use them to drive traffic to us.
In my little world, all my interviews go on our website. We also have a YouTube channel that has its own broadcast of Art Unfiltered, Order Up. So we've actually used a YouTube channel to develop new programming. Yep.
and Clayton, I know you do a lot of Facebook Live, like behind the scenes kind of stuff. You seem to like doing that.
Yeah, the struggle has been, and it kind of alludes to the point we were making earlier, that people want their news for free. They also want their news right now. Before we even know what's going on, I was at the scene of an officer-involved shooting in Lansing. I'm standing on the sidewalk as I'm hearing gunshots. Police are exchanging gunfire with a suspect they've been trying to track down, wanted for domestic violence. People are asking, what's going on? Why are you reporting things you don't really know? All I was doing was saying, I'm standing right here, listening to gunfire. This is all we know. We don't know if anyone's hurt, and it has become a very kind of slippery slope as far as what's safe to say right there and then, what's not. You receive a lot of criticism for not knowing, if that makes any sense.
Mm. Yeah, because you're going with what you know at the moment, because there's a demand for that, and yet what you know is not enough to tell the full story. Yeah, it's risky business.
Because you still have that competition between outlets to get the story first. No one really was like, yeah, I was the last one to get the story.
Yeah.
No one wants to be that person, but at the same time, I know when you were back at the collegiate, we talked a lot about that, because you're pretty fast to move on stories. And we always talked about, if you're fast, you're the first and you're wrong, that's not a good thing. So
Yeah.
it's better to be second and totally rock solid, accurate.
Later that night, we didn't really know much information until the press conference. By then, we were kind of first with being on Facebook. There's an active situation happening. Following that press conference, I noticed that, the competition were first, but they were first with the bare bones of what happened, what time, this is what we know. That night, I kind of took a little bit longer than I should have, but I was able to provide from start to finish what we know so far in depth. And there comes that fine line of how long is too long, but then at the end of the day, providing the most amount of information, the most amount of accurate information possible.
When a reporter goes up on a scene now, you talk about all those platforms. Used to be we would just go and we'd have a photographer with us and we'd shoot some stuff and put something together for our next deadline, 6 o'clock news or 11 o'clock at night. Now, reporters showing up alone with a camera, gunshots are going off, nobody's got their back. They're tweeting, they're live, they're Facebook Live, and then they have to at some point address the fact that they have a camera there and they got to shoot stuff for later. So the job of a reporter is just crazy to serve all those platforms, but you simply must.
And fighting rumors. When you are on Facebook Live, there are people that say they know this, they know that, and a lot of folks take that for more than they really should. Comments I see on Facebook, yeah, they're helpful, but I take them with grains of salt. You don't know how accurate they are. These people could be commenting from Arizona. You just don't know. So comments, while I'm out at a scene on Facebook Live, I just kind of tend to ignore.
But that's got to be weird for you, because if you're going live from a scene and people are commenting stuff that you're like, this is not true, but you're not in a position to address that,
Right.
What do you do? Do you shut down your Facebook Live?
No, I keep it going for engagement purposes. I ignore it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's important for everyone to remember. It's easy for someone to sit behind a computer screen and just type whatever comes to mind, either for fun, or so just keeping everything you read on the internet, taking it with a grain of salt, unless it's straight from a trusted source. So that's important to remember.
I'm pretty circumspect about what I'll do Facebook Live with. It's an event where I'm not sure what's going on. I probably won't Facebook Live. If it's a a rally or something like that, I probably wouldn't Facebook Live from a shooting situation, just because I just don't know.
Because of the unknowns, yeah.
But you might if there were a public safety concern surrounding a breaking news story, like a gas leak, where people needed to stay in their homes and hunker down and close their windows. And do you know what I mean, Bart?
I don't think I'd use Facebook Live for
really.
that,
No, I felt comfortable using Facebook Live for the student march. That was here because it was more just getting the word out. I didn't do any commenting, and most of the comments were actually positive, but I didn't reserve should I be doing this or not. I just was there and lived it.
Yeah, the student newspaper here did a live coverage of that march as well. It's risky though too, because not only do you have to worry about people commenting, but what people shout out at rallies. That's always, I know for me as an advisor, that's always something that causes me a great deal of trepidation, let's say. So let's talk, one other question I have about Facebook. Obviously today is a big day for the leader of Facebook. He is in Washington and supposed to be probably going on right now, making some presentations about some violations of privacy that have happened. When I started at the press, I did not have a Facebook account. I joined Facebook when I was covering higher education, so I could communicate with college students, so to get information and arrange interviews for my beat. Now, news outlets, we're all using Facebook. When I post a new podcast for my own website, I add it to my Facebook page so people know. I've had to embrace that platform as a way to promote my work. When the platforms we use come under fire and the public starts to turn on them a bit, what do you think, how does that complicate what we're doing? Because we're all on Facebook.
We're talking about so-called free media. Do any of you pay for Facebook? No. Do any of you pay for Instagram? No. Do any of you pay for Snapchat? No. Do you pay for Twitter? No. But you are paying. You're paying a price in your privacy. I mean, when I go into shoes.com and order a pair of shoes, why does every page I look for the next 2 weeks show me shoes? You know, I'm going, no, I bought them already. Don't you know this? Behind the scenes, you ever notice how, look in the lower left-hand corner of your browser when you go to a site. There's all these little things flashing across. These are all these organizations mining your information, what you've got on your laptop, your phone, whatever. You are sacrificing your privacy. You are sacrificing what you are interested in, and that's what happened with Facebook. This organization was mining all this data off of Facebook so they could tailor messages to you. My liberal friends live in an entirely different Facebook community than my conservative friends because of how the messages are shaped and steered towards their biases. That's what happened here, in that, you know, Facebook basically opened its door to, can't think of the name of this, Analytica, which then, you know, sold this information to the Russians or whomever and used it to shape a message that determined how you looked at the presidential race and how you voted.
Yeah, I got one of those notifications today saying that my stuff had been compromised by Cambridge Analytica, which doesn't surprise me one bit, because during the election, 75% of my feed was just utter garbage, just utter falsehood. It was amazing. So I'm not surprised. And, you know, everybody knows you're the commodity when you're on Facebook. You know, you're what they're selling.
And I guess what I was getting at is, since media outlets, mainstream media outlets, have embraced Facebook as a product to promote our content, and we're all on it, saying this is a story I reported today, or this is a podcast that I've uploaded, or here's my segment. And now you have people distrusting Facebook, and some of us are using that to drive people back to our sites. So I'm just curious on how you guys are working around that, or what you're thinking you're going to do as more people might leave Facebook to get people to see your content.
You know, honestly, we're still using it, but Facebook consumers are going to age out eventually. I mean, I would venture to guess that most of the students in this room don't even use Facebook. This is like not a conversation that applies to them. They're off of it. They think old people use it. Their parents do, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be on to the next thing, and it'll get compromised, and that's the new paradigm.
We'll be continuing to chase young viewers and readers.
Have to.
Yeah.
I guess the question to the audience, where are you social media wise? 20-year-old, arm up.
Where are you guys getting your news?
Chat, Insty, and you get your news and everything there. Yeah.
All right, are there other comments, other questions?
Actually, hi, Dan Hendricks. I teach sociology here and at GVSU, and like talking with my students about the way we form institutions like the media and their interaction. But I'm really curious, in the last several months or more, I've been hearing, say, surrogates for the administration go out on weekend talk show programs and blatantly lie. And what responsibility do journalists have in confronting those lies when they happen right there, compared to, I seem to notice they don't always confront those lies directly, probably in the interest of continuing the interview, but in doing so, doesn't that only lend credibility to the lies? And what responsibility do journalists have to calling out those lies?
Yeah, that's your job.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
And to listen and catch that, yep.
Yeah, and not take anyone's word as truth. You have to, I mean, if somebody says something that's outrageous, ask them to back it up with facts somehow.
Sure. It has to be done in a way that makes sense. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
you let them talk and you circle back to what they said that was baloney
Yeah,
and
and-
start taking it apart. You can't literally be sitting there going, well, that's a lie, because that interview is going to be over pretty quick.
Right, but you have to unpack what they're saying. You know, where did you get this fact from? How does this reflect what we're seeing out in the street or in reality? You have to unpack it. You just can't go, well, you're lying, get off the air. That doesn't work. Then you've got, Kelly, what's her name, claiming, well, these are our alternative facts. Well, that's, they're
And I
facts are
understand the
facts,
nuances
but you
that
need
go
to
with your
unpack it.
jobs as reporters when it comes to this, but at the same time, as a viewer, when the viewer hears an outright lie, and the person's, when it's handled in a manner that allows the interview to continue, it almost seems to lend more credibility to the lies that are being said, rather than, isn't there a point where as a journalist, maybe journalists need to say, hey, you know what, you're flat out lying, maybe this interview needs to be done, rather than leaving it to the person telling the lies to say, you're confronting me, I think I'm done here.
Yeah, some journalists are better than others at scrutinizing live in a situation. I think George Stephanopoulos is very good. I think that Jake Tapper's good. There are a few that are pretty good at getting to the nut of the truth, but you're right. I mean, it's easier when it's live to let it roll and then go back and take it apart, but then damage is done, right? The viewer that clicks off heard that, and so your point is quite legitimate. And yet,
theoretically, what you say is great, but in practice,
it's tough.
Yeah, it gets tricky when you're trying not to come across as being rude and dismissive, but it's a great point.
Agendized is what? If you dig deep, then you're agendized, and that's a problem.
Okay. I'm Linnea. I'm a student here. I'm kind of nervous, but whatever. I'm majoring in digital media and animation, and we tell stories, current stories, stories people want to hear. And how do you make sure that your own personal bias isn't told through your media? How do you, if you have your own personal bias, you're not really allowed to talk about it, in your news, how do you get out your personal bias? Are you allowed to? Are your jobs allowing you to talk about it? Do you have to keep it to yourself?
Yeah, I always keep. I do not post anything about personal bias on social media. I have no tweets about which president I'm voting for, things. So it's important to, when you're putting together a story, it's important to make sure you're getting all the sides. So there was a story I wrote a few years ago, and even though I had a personal bias in my mind, and I was thinking this person is ridiculous, but still I listened to them, wrote on what they said, and even though what they said was so ridiculous, wrote it down and thought he was going to get mad at me for presenting the story in the way I did, and he said, "Oh, I thought it was really fair. I thought it was great. You put," and I was like, oh, "Great, I'm glad."
Fairness, just be fair.
Right.
Be fair to people. Fairly tell their story, even if you don't agree with it. Just give them a fair hearing and make sure that their point is presented in a way that you know they meant it. You know how people mean things. You know, just have that kind of decency to just kind of be fair about it, and that's really kind of what it comes down to, I think.
I've taken the mentality of putting myself in their shoes. If I'm in their shoes, how am I feeling? Same with both sides. And that helps me write the story at the end of the day. You know, if I'm person A feeling like this, how am I going to feel hearing the other side, so on and so forth. So that helps me with balancing it out a little bit.
Also ask for a second set of eyes. You know, step away from it and let the person next to you read it or view it to see if they see it in the same way that you intended to create it. And you're on the cutting edge. What you're preparing for is what journalism, what a lot of outlets are looking for. So you're in a good track. Active to employers.
Editors are really awful, but they can be helpful at times to kind of keep you.
Producers
as well.
Yeah. Content for Snapchat, and you're it.
Biases is also how to spot fake news. Consider if your own beliefs could affect your judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And great profession you're entering.
Mm-hmm.
So as frontline journalists, how many of you guys have fact checkers, librarians, somebody behind you who's checking the facts as you are recording or as you are presenting the facts to other people? So for instance, like with the question you asked about, suppose somebody is being interviewed and they're lying. Are there people behind you who are fact checking, who are able to kind of come right back at them with appropriate and the right answers? So
yes, it's our readers. At MLive, we open our articles to comment. They can comment anonymously, and believe me, if we don't get our facts right, they call us on it. And occasional errors of fact, like, I'll write a story about a house and I'll say it's 4 bedrooms and oops, it was really 3. I'll get called out on it, and I'll correct it immediately and apologize. We aren't infallible. We have to make sure our facts are right because our fact checkers are online and will immediately let us know if they want to dispute the facts we present.
Yeah, a lot of local publications just don't really have it in the budget anymore to have even a part-time fact checker on staff. But so that's why it's so important for the reporter to make sure they're researching and making sure that everything's accurate. We do have a full-time copy editor, and then from there it goes through another editor and then another editor after that. But still, the reporter has to put in a lot of work to make sure things are accurate.
I think it's in preparation, being a big-time consumers of media ourselves and information, so that you go into it informed so you can ask the questions on the spot so that we're not waiting for repair work after the fact, I think is essential. So if you're thinking about a career in journalism, I hope you're hungry to learn and read and consume everything that you can so you're the smartest you can be.
Hi, my name is Megan Gutchess. I'm a high school senior actually at Northview High School, and I'm the school's editor. I'm actually pursuing journalism at Northwestern. And a few weeks ago when we had the student protests, the silent ones on, I think, March 14th, Fox 17, who is represented here, they did like a representation, and we actually did 2 protests, one inside and one outside. And they only covered the inside one, and me and my co-editor, we actually emailed Fox 17 about it, and we said how we didn't think it was fair that they didn't even cover the outside protest, and they never like got back to us. So do you guys have any opinions on that, or like how do you deal with, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, how you deal with if someone like calls you out on it and you go back and say something, but kind of like how do you deal with stuff like that?
Difference between the outside and the inside protest?
Yeah, what the outside one was like the full silent 17 minutes thing, which is what most students around the country were like talking about, and then the inside one was kind of directed by student council and some of the administration. It was like more of an assembly that was through like, not necessarily through the administration, but like approved by the administration, and there was just like Fox 17 only covered the inside one. Even like other places, other sources did cover outside as well, but Fox 17 didn't even like mention it. And when we emailed them,
were there press releases that went out that mentioned that you would be inside as well?
Yeah, they said stuff.
Somebody should have gotten back to you and explained.
Yeah,
there could be a million reasons why they didn't. Maybe they just didn't have time. Maybe they got their thing and just left and didn't know about it. Who knows? But you know, they should. We try to get back to everybody that writes us about something. You know. They should, and that's part of the transparency, is just explaining to people why things are done the way they are, and that's important. So, I mean, but why they did it that way. It's probably a really benign reason, then it'll be really boring.
I'd like to take this conversation back just a few steps here that you're talking about. And has anybody seen the April 6th Forbes report that says Department of Homeland Security compiling database of journalists and media influencers? And what's your feeling about the government compiling a list of media representatives?
Well, Nixon had his enemies list, and you know, that didn't work out for him. I mean, you know, we're going to be under attack. As anytime you're a truth teller, somebody who is afraid of the truth, doesn't want the truth, is going to make these sort of intimidating gestures, you know, and there are prisons with journalists in them in other countries. Maybe there even will be here before things turn around, but I mean, that's part of the responsibility you take on as a journalist. It's not a popularity contest. It shouldn't be a popularity contest. And, you know, it's just an intimidation thing. But I've been intimidated in city hall meetings. I've been intimidated on the street, and it's just, you know, it's just what you do for the mission you have, your calling. Journalism's a calling. You aren't going to get rich doing it unless you own unless you're Zuckerberg.
My reaction is, well, really? They're just starting one now? I assumed it was already there.
It kind of comes with the territory. I think if you're a journalist and you're working, whatever organization you're covering, whether you're a college journalist or a professional journalist, the newsmakers out there are aware of who you are. They'll know your name. They'll try to figure out how your mind works and anticipate how you're going to cover them. When I was in college at Central Michigan University, every year the president of the college, at every interaction we had, he'd say, "Jennifer, so you're graduating this year, right?" And I took that as a high compliment, because he really wanted me off campus, because I was sometimes sitting on the bench outside his office when he wouldn't take my calls. I said, "That's okay, I have homework, I'll just wait for you." And I would wait for the comment, you know. I always tried to be pleasant about it, but they've been watching us for a long time. So.
Hi, I'm Steven Eason. I'm a student reporter for the Collegiate. So when you hear people talk about how to combat fake news, everyone always says you gotta cross-reference multiple sources, you know, don't get all your news in one place. So do any of you feel as though media competitiveness, where you're all trying to get the story out first, and in some cases you're trying to be the only one with that story. Do you feel like that makes it more difficult for consumers to check other sources and cross-reference when you're all trying to be first and you're trying to be best?
It's certainly a risk, right? You'd love to be first, and you'd love to be exclusive, but at the sacrifice of truth or facts, that is no win. So I think the command is that you are just that much more thorough in sourcing everything, finding people to corroborate, not one witness but two. There are all kinds of rules, like in every newsroom, probably of every person seated at this table, guidelines about how to run information through the ringer to be sure that it's right.
And as we begin to wind things down here, I think it'd be a good time to have, if there are any people here who have any career questions for the panel. One of the things we have the blessing of a lot of experience at this table, and also some experience, some folks who have, Clayton and Justin are recent graduates of college and have entered this media business that's dramatically different than the one their teacher told them about when you were in my class. So any questions that are specific to their careers or how they got where they are today? Or if you guys want to just answer what I just said, I kind of stole their thunder and asked the question. Do you guys have any career advice for these young people here?
I tell people that visit our newsroom, passion. You have to have a passion for this business because it's tough, long hours. You have to really love what you do to be able to do it.
You stole passion from me. I actually had a degree in physical therapy for 15 years before I knew, when I was your age, maybe a little younger, that really journalism was really where my heart was, and chased that dream in my late 30s and haven't stopped. So if it's burning in you, you're not going to let that go. So stay the course.
My first job out of college was at minimum wage. I was pleased. I was happy because this is something I was burning to do. This was my calling. I realized that after I, like I said earlier, ditched my political science degree in the wake of Watergate and went into journalism. I went and worked for the student newspaper at Central Michigan University and discovered my calling. I discovered I loved it. And my minimum wage job that I started right after graduating from 4 years of very expensive college, I was thrilled. 42 years later, I can retire, and it's been a good career. I haven't gotten rich, but it's paid my bills, and that's what I hope for. If you're a student, that somehow this industry, this calling, will continue to allow you to pay your bills, because you're not going to get rich, but you should be able to raise a family and buy a house and live the American dream.
This guy's one of the really great, one of the great journalists that you're.
Have you told us what you're going to do at the end of the month?
I'm going to ride my bike.
But yeah, we're lucky to be able to do this. I mean, it really is. It's a great job. It's a privilege to do it every day, to be able to tell people's stories, to have them tell you their story and trust you with that story, to put it out there. That's really a sacred responsibility, and we're privileged to be able to do this. But it's not easy, and it doesn't pay well, and you'll always love journalism more than journalism loves you. And but it's a great gig.
I will say too that it's, especially with the number of jobs dwindling, it's a competitive field. It's a calling. It's also a competitive field, and you have to write for your college paper, and you have to have internships. I mean, you just can't not anymore. There was a time when you could just show up at an office and say, I want to be a writer, and they'd give you a job.
I know when that time was. When was that time?
It might have been like 200 years ago.
Time ago. I don't know, before my time. But
get to know your professors.
Yeah.
Oh, Jennifer.
Our relationships for sure now.
Yeah.
Read everything, learn to write. Good writers are good journalists. Too many come up and can't write, and that's a shame.
Read.
Develop a curiosity about people. Everywhere you go is a story. Every person is a story, potentially. And dig deep. It is a really great career. Very rewarding, important work. Under fire, changing rapidly. Blows your bangs back on some days, but it's really terrific.
I think another important thing to pass along too is versatility. I've gone from covering Nassar to covering breaking news about a school shooting all in one day. You have to stay on top of how court works. I've had to learn that very quickly. And not only that, with as far as versatility and stories go, but versatility with your position. I'm an anchor reporter, but I also produce. Having that experience too helps you. I know how to shoot good video. Working on storytelling, you have to be very versatile. I think in this business, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, take every opportunity to learn every position, because you will be your first job. You need to know it all, because you're carrying the camera, you're editing, you're then presenting it on the air, the whole shebang.
Question.
Hi, my name is Tatiana. I'm the feature editor at the Collegiate. Just wondering, do you have any advice, like where can we actually go, right, fresh out of college? Some of us are planning on graduating this semester. So where can we go to find jobs?
Live.
There's one opened up right there.
Seriously, we've got internships, and we've got a core of bright young reporters who are smart, ambitious, hardworking, and we're winning awards for our coverage, for our work we're doing. But it's not going to be easy, but it'll be thrilling and fun, and
it also depends on whether you're willing to move or not. I mean, if you're willing to go somewhere else. I mean, being tied to one geographic area increases the difficulty, of course. And so if you're willing to go somewhere, it's going to start small. It's going to start low pay.
You may have to produce before your dream is on air. Just don't allow yourself to be pigeonholed into she's a great producer. And if your heart is really to be the deliverer, then make sure your steps take you to the delivery. But producing you're going to learn everything as well.
I think it's important to every opportunity you have, take it and rock it. When I had started here at GRCC, I was the multimedia editor at the Collegiate, the very first one, with a tiny little handheld camera. I took that opportunity, and along with Jennifer's help, we were able to rock that position. We were next door creating little mini newscasts for YouTube.
I've seen them.
Yeah. Take every take every position and rock it. Make it the best what it can be. Hard work goes noticed. It may not feel like it, but hard work goes noticed.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Well, thank you so much for coming out. With the talent at this table is incredible. And thanks to all of you for attending. We really appreciate that. And so I know these folks, a lot of them, well, pretty much all of them have to get back to work, but you might be able to, if you have any follow-up questions, you might be able to walk them to the door and get a few more questions in. But thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Jennifer.